No matter the gear you possess or the skills you've trained to excel in, without sleep, you won't last in the long term. This critical activity that we all take for granted has a special place in the art of ninjutsu, as it is considered a weakness to be exploited and a strength to maintain, according to the scrolls of the Shinobi. We all know that the human animal requires sleep for a third of its existence. Without it, the body and mind suffer greatly. Sleep is essential for clearing waste products from the brain with the actions of lymphatic processes that are most active when resting. Consequently, if we don't get enough sleep, the nervous system is deleteriously affected, resulting in a lack of focus, deterioration of memory, hormonal imbalances, susceptibility to infection, slower processing and reaction times, and at the extreme end of sleep deprivation, we get effects like hallucinations, paranoia, stroke, and death. Getting less than 6 hours of sleep a night increases the risk of stroke by over 300%. And in the case of an unfortunate genetic disorder known as fatal familial insomnia, wherein the inheritor loses sleep to the point that he or she cannot sleep at all, death ultimately results merely from the lack of sleep. So just as food, water, shelter, and fire are crucial to the survival of a shinobi, getting sleep must be part of a plan for subsistence. Because everyone has to sleep at some point, it is reasonable that we find throughout history military tactics that were engineered to take advantage of the enemy's slumber. Shinobi are widely known for their nighttime operations, the details of which are conveyed in historical documents such as the Bonsen Chukai. In volume 13 of this text, we encounter observations about sleep that shinobi deemed important for nighttime infiltrations, such as how to profile people to determine their sleep patterns and how to tell if someone is feigning sleep, as well as methods for harassing the enemy so that they cannot rest easy. We are informed by the shinobi ways that the elderly tend to sleep less while the overweight might sleep more. Alert, vigilant military types will be quick to rouse from light sleep, and if someone is heavily intoxicated, once they pass out, it will be easy to infiltrate their residence. We are also told within this text that those of a firm body and who are trained on the consequences of not keeping a strict watch will not sleep deeply. This all depends on environmental and circumstantial factors, however, such as seasons and whether it is a time of peace or war. A few of the observations respecting sleep in relation to the seasons recorded by the shinobi are that in the winter months, people tend to have a difficulty falling and staying asleep, whereas in the spring and summer months, a cool, light drizzle of rain actually assists witnesses of the potential infiltration to fall into a deep sleep. However, in addition to these general rules of thumb, further assessment measures were required prior to infiltrating. For example, a shinobi might carry a kikitsuzu, or listening cylinder. They would press this tool up against walls and doors to listen for signs of an enemy in slumber, or the stirring within indicating that someone is awake. The snoring of the enemy assisted the shinobi in identifying where they were located within the dwelling, leading up to a night raid, or concealing oneself inside the structure for intelligence collection purposes, and even outright assassinations in the dead of night. If a shinobi could not detect the enemy by listening for snoring or movement, a technique known as kyonin, or startling the enemy, was used to rouse and draw out the presence and location of their targets. Kyonin could take the shape of a fellow shinobi making a lot of sound in front of the dwelling and faking an illness, or staging a confusing altercation that beckons the guards out of the dwelling to respond. Or a shinobi might simply make animal sounds, such as a cat or dog, to induce a response from the inhabitants of the residence, the former being a way to create a gap in the enemy's defense to get a shinobi into the dwelling and listen as things settle down, while the latter technique could be used to know where the enemy is sleeping while keeping the human form concealed, and even harass the enemy throughout the night for many nights to keep them from getting the rest they need to be an effective fighting force. In addition to these tactics of exhausting the enemy by chronic harassment throughout the nights, shinobi would augment their hidden advantages by coupling the principle of the dream pillow, or yume makura no daiji, with the active phase of their nighttime operations. This principle, recorded in the Gokui Ten no Maki scroll, admonishes the shinobi to not rely on methods of staying awake, but instead, one should ensure the shinobi team is getting enough sleep by taking turns in rotating shifts. If this team was hidden in a secure location, a few shinobi could be dispatched to harass the enemy, while another part of the team slept easy. Shinobi called this method of sleeping in shifts nete nezare no sute, or the tradition of sleeping while not sleeping. Although ninja did have a training discipline that would adapt them to the effects of having little sleep, such as avoiding comfort, refusing to lay down, and generally subjecting oneself to miserable conditions, Fujibayashi Yasutake informs the ninjutsu student in volume 11 of the Bansen Shukai that no matter how encouraged you feel, you cannot perform anything well without sleep, going on to advise the shinobi on the importance of getting a nap prior to a nighttime infiltration. Yes, a nap. Interesting enough, in a presentation put on by Harvard Medical School titled Why Sleep Matters, researchers asserted their evidence for the astounding effects of a 90-minute nap, stating that one such nap produces as much memory and information processing restoration benefit as a night of 8 hours of sleep. So take it from the ninja. Naps are powerful. The takeaway from all this is that sleep was just as vital to shinobi as it is to all people today. Everyone needs adequate amounts of sleep to maintain their health. Sleeplessness is an epidemic, and we aren't even experiencing a global end of the world as we know it crisis. So just imagine how much harder it would be for people to fall asleep in the event of scenarios that captivate the minds of preppers across the globe. Stress makes it harder to sleep, and if everything around you is falling apart, good luck getting a good night's rest. The practical value of what we know about shinobi and their studies of sleep is that rotating shifts should be implemented to secure watch over your domain during a disaster, conflict, or black swan event. Recognize that attention should be given to sleep systems that one keeps in a pack for emergencies, and how the lack of sleep will impact one mentally and physically.